Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. Go ahead, like, subscribe, do all those things that people tell you to do when you are on YouTube, and subscribe to the podcast via Apple, iTunes, podcast, however you're listening. We appreciate you for doing that. My name's Caleb with the Startup Junkie team, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jeff Amerine and Davis McEntire. How's it going?
Glad to be here.
Friday afternoon, bourbon in hand, and the awesome studio backdrop. How much better could it get?
It could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse. We're excited today to have a special guest, Brendan Howell. Brendan's joined us for events in the past. He is relatively new to the Northwest Arkansas region by way of New Zealand and Miami and Southern California. He's well-traveled and has a great deal of experience in the entrepreneurial space, but I'm not going to, give everything away. I'm going to, break this down in the episode. How's it going, Brendan?
Good, thank you. Yeah, great to be here. And still very fresh off the boat. Into Northwest Arkansas, but so far so good. Really enjoying it.
Well, we're glad to have you both on the podcast and in Northwest Arkansas, obviously.
Thank you.
So give us the origin story. Roll it back.
For LowLoft, I'm sorry, I didn't mention LowLoft. Founder of LowLoft.
LowLoft.
Yeah, LowLoft.
Well, and you too.
I mentioned that, right?
And you too. We want to hear about you as well.
Yeah, so born and raised in New Zealand, not so long ago. Okay, a little long ago. Grew up there, went to school and everything, then left school and became an aircraft engineer. So I did my time with Air New Zealand on the tools. Really enjoyed it, but always had the entrepreneurial spirit, and aircraft engineering is not the kind of thing you can really just try things with.
Not a lot of experimentation on the fly there.
Fail fast and iterate doesn't work well with aircraft, right?
Way too many bolts. We can lighten that up a little. So, I had an interesting exit from the airline business. My manager actually wrote my resignation letter in his office and suggested I sign it.
Well, that's probably the greatest favor that you were ever done, right? Because that propelled you into your next career.
It was actually, because he could see how I was, as a person, and what I was interested in, and he could see that being in the aircraft business was just sort of boxing me in a little bit. So I left that, started various businesses, had experience in the billboard / outdoor space. Tried that. My first company got stolen off me by a bigger company, which taught me some lessons about contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. We've all been there.
Having solid contracts in place. So there was an interesting experience at the time. It stung a bit, but in hindsight, it was probably one of the best things that could have happened. And then did some traveling. Being from New Zealand, we always like to go and see the rest of the world because we're so isolated down there.
Sure.
We see the movies and go, I want to go to America. I want to go to Waffle House.
That's the draw, right?
For me, it was
it as good as it was in the movies?
True American cuisine. Let's go to Waffle House.
One of the high points for me was when the lady came over and poured my coffee with the little apron, and then she came back and offered me more coffee. I was like, we can have more coffee. It's free.
Waffle House, if you're listening, we're open to sponsorships.
We are open to sponsorships. The endless supply of Folgers or Maxwell House. It's awesome.
That was interesting. But so did some traveling overseas. Lived in Australia for a few years. And started a business with my brother in the sports space. So we did a lot of sports supplements and apparel, sunglasses and all this kind of thing. And we used to supply the daily deal sites, like Living Social and Groupon,
Gotcha.
like the equivalents in Australia.
Gotcha.
And then I remember one conversation we had with one of the buyers, because the company was Eakin Sports, and we just get stuff and put a logo on it. And the guy was, you can't put your logo on everything. Put it on sunglasses, drink bottles, supplements, USB drives. He's like, I know you guys are proud of your brand, but
you learned a little bit about intellectual property in that deal.
We figured we'd put it on that cup if we had the chance. And so did that for a little while, and then came back to New Zealand. And we had the business running in New Zealand also. And then decided to get into technology because I've always wanted to get into technology. I've always been curious about software and scalability of tech projects. So we decided to build our first platform back in 2014. And so we scraped up 150 grand and thought that was all the money in the world. And we'll make something, put it out, it'll go viral, sit back, just collect the checks.
And it works exactly like that, right?
Oh, it's so easy. That's why when I did that presentation, my first slide, startups are easy. It's like in parentheses, to fail. So, we wanted to, we raised that money and then we figured out we needed some more. So we put a sort of prospectus together to raise 500K. And we went out there, we were trying to get it from one investor. We had friends come say, hey, we'll put 10 grand, I'll put 20 grand. And we're like, no, we just want one investor. I don't want to mess around with all the small lots. And then when the 150 started sort of coming to an end, we thought maybe we should take those small checks. so we started, taking the small checks and that led us into doing a crowdfunding campaign. So we did, I think it was 2015 because it was before the US legalized it. So we did an equity crowdfunding campaign. That's still online. You can still see it today. And maybe if you guys do show notes, we could link it in there so people can
absolutely
take a look. And that was a super interesting experience, like going through the whole process of putting the plan together, all the documentation, getting the campaign live, and then so we started putting the new investors through the crowdfunding platform, and it was actually pretty cool because it was a way if people said we want to invest, we were like, okay, cool, we'd take a laptop, put all your details in and push that button. No, oh yeah, that button there. So it was actually good for closing.
Right.
I remember one time, me and my brother were sitting in a cafe and these investors wanted to put money in there. Yeah, we'll put 100K in each. Okay, cool. There you go.
Do it now, right?
Yeah, they were like,
So what was the routing number again?
And it was really good. So we raised $711,000 for that.
Wow.
Yeah, in that campaign. Super successful.
That's awesome.
And we created an app that was like Facebook Marketplace before Facebook had Facebook Marketplace. It was for buying and selling used goods. So we called it Sell Shed. SHED. Because of my accent, I have to be super careful how I say that. I remember I was in San Francisco one time doing one of those 2-minute pitches at a meetup.
Right.
And I was like, we've got this really cool app, Sell Shed, blah, 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 blah. I did the minute pitch and everyone was like, all eyes were on me and everyone was super engaged. I was like, man, I've got this audience. And then afterwards, the first question was, what's it called? So I've learned to speak slowly and to substitute certain words for other words. So we built the platform out, came to the US to a conference in Vegas, and thought, we've got something super unique here. Took a little tiny booth, that's all we could afford at the conference, and then found out there's like 5 other similar businesses. So we're like, man, this sucks. So we went back to New Zealand, kind of with that tail between our legs. Thought we've got to come up with something different, something new. So had a look at the platform and thought, started looking at auctions and how do auctions work, because it was kind of in that space of buying and selling stuff. And then we thought about, why don't we do like a reverse auction, like a Dutch auction? That was kind of the motivation for the next project, which is a pivot called Dropit. And so we tried these reverse auctions. We would auction things off, and the first one started at 9 minutes and went backwards. But there was kind of like, as far as excitement goes, it was almost like watching paint dry. So we very quickly lost the audience. So we tried a few iterations and we landed on 60 seconds. Because I don't know, for the human psyche, 60 seconds seems to be a magic number for urgency.
Yeah.
It's a nice unit of measurement.
Yep.
So we built the platform out, and the whole premise was we auctioned these items off and they start at full price, and then every second the price drops, and the 60 seconds is 0. But the first bidder wins the auction. So the way it goes is there's a big clock with the item in the middle, and the TikTok hand going down and the price is ticking down in front of you, and then you hold a button, kind of like Pokemon Go, but before Pokemon Go also.
They stole that idea.
Yeah, they stole it, yeah. And then you had to swipe up through the price to end the auction. And so we could tell who's engaged, how long they're engaging for, what they're engaging in.
Wow.
And then we'd do a bounce back offer afterwards. So say, hey, you lost that, Sony PlayStation at half price. Here's 20% off if you want to go and buy it now. You've got the next 2 hours to transact. So we found a home for that in sports, funnily enough. So I came to San Francisco in 2016 as the spearhead for the business. Landed in Workspace incubator in San Francisco. We chose that because it was the home of Uber, Spotify, Hootsuite, Supercell, and I think 18 other unicorns they've had kick off.
Right.
So the idea was just hopefully a bit of magic dust would rub off.
Sure. Yeah.
And being in that environment, we got access to the 49ers just sort of randomly. So we got introduced to the Niners. They took a look at the technology, said, hey, this looks pretty cool. Let's look at partnering. So I spent a lot of time at Levi Stadium figuring out how to make it work on the video boards. And I know what my Gmail looks like, 200 feet wide by 60 feet high. I don't think the Niners are too happy about that. So that was interesting. So we did a lot of R&D with those guys. And then we ended up signing with the Phoenix Suns. We did a season with them, with the platform.
Wow.
Yes, we'd run auctions in game. So pre-game, in the breaks, and like a big win at halftime. And we'd do different things like, if you're in the venue, we'd auction off courtside seats and a locker room tour. And you can't buy a locker room tour, so it's an experience that costs the team next to nothing. But it has a lot of perceived value for the fans. And so what would happen is the item would auction off, would set a price, it'd go down. The same story as before, first bidder, boom, everyone's phone explodes, vibrate, the video board explodes, the winner's face comes up on the video board, and then in the auction.
That's cool.
So
it was super engaging. Yeah, and we did some auctions with the Seattle Mariners and Kansas City Royals at spring training 2 years in a row at Peoria. Nice. So we work with Mitsubishi there, Ducati.
Man, good traction with blue chip brands, it sounds like.
Yeah. So we had some good exposure to some nice brands. And with our previous business, the sports company, we sponsored world-class athletes. So we had a little bit of sort of exposure to that world.
Right.
And through being in San Francisco, we managed to get a guy, Keith Bruce, joined our board. He was the CEO on Super Bowl 50. So he was really good for us in sports because he just knew a lot of people in sports.
Sure.
He got us in with Formula One also.
Wow.
Yeah, so we got in with some pretty good names, and then we kind of thought, maybe we'll steer the platform towards esports, and esports and everything just kind of fizzled out during COVID. So so I mean, that company's just merged with another one. So I've exited, but I still have all my stock.
Gotcha.
So I'm still connected to it.
Gotcha.
And exiting that actually is where I kind of started the LowLoft journey. So did you want me to kind of jump?
Jump into that.
Absolutely.
Let's hear it.
We don't have any structure here. So
that's fine.
You go.
I'm just going to stop for a quick sip.
Yeah. So the pandemic kind of
There's one rule, though. You have to be done with your beer before we get to the end. And you have to have at least one shot of bourbon.
I think I can manage that. I'm from New Zealand.
Twist your arm,
Welcome to the Startup Junkies podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Davis. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're all right. So the pandemic was the kind of pivoting point for you, kind of ushering in this leave from, distancing yourself from Dropit and into LowLoft. Is that
It's
correct?
actually pre-pandemic that I decided to exit. Yeah, I mean, me and my brother worked together for 8 years. And then, we just decided to go and we wanted to take the business in different directions. And so we put the gloves on, had a punch up, he won. Mum was there. She's
good way to
I was going to say, it takes a big man to admit that. So.
I was always the bigger brother because I was older.
Right.
When we grew up, turns out he's actually bigger than me. So I figured that out when I was 18 and he was like 15. I lost all my powers and stopped wrestling. But so I exited the company, and then myself and fiance at the time, now wife, we were kind of kicking around different ideas. And one thing we came up with was, we were living in Miami, renting, and we thought, it'd be nice to move early into another place, but we're stuck in a lease and we couldn't go anywhere. And then we kind of thought, it seems crazy to be tied to somebody else's physical asset, by contract. Like, wouldn't it be nice if we could live there for 6 months and then go, hey, we want to try that other place or that other neighborhood? Because we were looking to buy something, but when you're looking to buy, you don't know, you're new to a city, you don't know where you want to go. And so the whole sort of drive for LowLoft, originally, it was a residential property play. So the whole premise was, okay, you get a membership with LowLoft and you're committed to us for a year, and then you can use any property in the network. So you're not committed to a property, but you're committed to the program. So it kind of made a lot of sense to us, not being real estate experts, coming from outside and just being convenience experts. Like, what makes
something
sense?
you would want.
This is what I would use.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so we built the whole platform out. So you can go through, find a property, apply for the property, do your credit checks through the TransUnion API. We connected to those guys. Put all your banking details in, just connect it to the Stripe API. Then you can all the access control was built in for another API for IoT devices. And then for support to the Freshdesk API. So just a whole collection of APIs that really created a nice user experience. Built it out, had our first alpha customer, which was a corporate, because we were going to offer it to corporates. Like, say you have 100 people who travel for business, you may only have 20 at any one time. So take 20 memberships and then share them among those members. So it was a way to lower the travel costs for them. But for us, we had guaranteed revenue from those members. So we're about to go live March of last year.
Great timing.
Yeah. So I actually just came back from New Zealand. I was on the last flight out of New Zealand, unbeknownst to anyone on the flight. They told us after we took off. They were like, so this is the last flight.
You're not coming back.
You're not coming back. So there was no opportunity to panic or jump off the plane.
Exactly. Just then give everybody a couple drinks first.
Yeah, have a couple of drinks and just relax. So I was on the last flight out, and then lockdown happened. So I kind of figured it was probably not a great time to disrupt the residential property market. So we kind of set on the idea, just parked that for a little while. Got into the PPE space because through the sports company, we'd done a lot of business in China, and I had a man on.
That's when we first spoke.
Yeah.
But you were not long here, and we had that conversation, and you were ramping up PPE manufacturing.
Yeah. I was ramping up to be the king of face masks. Yeah. So
just imagine the endorsement you could get from LeBron James, right? The king of anyway. Keep going.
It
was a reach.
Or a cease and desist, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Just put your logo on his
Space
stuff.
Jam in a theater near you.
He won't mind.
Yeah, exactly. So started importing the PPE, and then I kind of thought, why don't we make the stuff here? Because I had a lot of access to manufacturers in China and equipment, and did the research. I really wanted to do something on the ground here. Didn't want to be importing everything. I kind of felt it was important to, even just doing it in my own small way.
Sure.
Just a couple of people taking that step to manufacture here. So we did. We got all the stuff in, and then a friend of mine convinced us to come here. We were going to set up in Miami because that's where we were living at the time. The backstory came from New Zealand, San Francisco to Miami, and then to Arkansas. Miami, because it was in 2017, because it was much cheaper to operate a technology company in Miami than it was in San Francisco. And we had access to better talent at a reasonable price.
Yep.
So made the decision to come here, took a couple of flights and had a look around, and it feels very similar to where I grew up in New Zealand, like Northwest Arkansas. Everyone's super nice and relaxed, and it's really green, and everyone's kind of humble and
good looking, and
Really good looking. Right?
Great conversationalists.
People can talk sheep, goats, or cattle.
Yeah,
if you need them to.
Just don't bring up bro.
Oh man.
And so we made the decision to come here, and then I thought, okay, all we need now is a premises to set the business up. Easy. Call the local realtors. We want 10,000 square feet for 12 months. What do you got? Nothing. Okay. 12,000, nothing. 15, nothing. And the best we could find was 20,000 square feet for 5 years. We well, that didn't really suit because we knew we weren't going to be in the business for 5 years. It was a 12-month project for us.
Sure.
And then we just kept looking, nothing. There was just nothing available. And so finding the space that we ended up in really just took me harassing Marshall Savers from Christopher Wakefield every couple of days. And lucky Marshall's a very nice guy and he's got a lot of patience.
Yes.
So, I said, I want a meeting with Bill Stribling. So he set the meeting up with Bill, went and had a look at the Stribling building, which is one of the biggest buildings in the region, 280,000 square feet. And I said, I want to set up a 2,000 square foot micro manufacturing facility right in the middle of your factory.
And he's like, great.
Yeah, with $8,000 of storage. I'm going to really up the game here. And so we settled on 20,000 feet in total. So we did the 2,000 square feet micro facility. So me and so in that time, Paola, the fiance, we got married, sort of a little while ago. And so the father-in-law, Vic, comes over and, we're like, okay, cool, let's do this. We call a general contractor and they said it's going to cost like, I don't know, $80,000 or something. We're like, okay, so we started calling, they're Mexican, we started calling all the Mexicans around town.
Right.
And then, we found good electrical,
good
ceiling guys and then we were going to, because we had to put a floor down and drop a ceiling and make a clean room. And, I'm very hands-on and we got a price for the floor. I was like, why don't we just do it? It'll be easy. We'll just grind it up and put some epoxy down,
Famous last words.
What could possibly go wrong? Right. So, the concrete grinding, I think we both lost about 10 pounds over 2 days because it was in the middle of summer in a big house.
Man.
With not much airflow and no cooling.
Probably 118 degrees in there, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So we ground that thing and then epoxy time came and I've done a lot of painting in the past. I was like, I've got this. But I never painted epoxy on a floor. And it's like painting chewing gum on a floor. It doesn't flow very nicely. And the problem is once you start, you've got to keep going because it's going to go off.
It's going to dry, right?
Yeah. It's the chemical reaction's taking place. And so I rolled for 6 hours straight a floor in the heat. It was one of the most brutal things I've ever done. It's an experience I'll do once and that's it.
You validated that you don't need to do that again.
Yeah, I figured I know how to do it and now I can just tell someone else how to do it. So
you put that on your resume?
So we did that. We dropped the ceiling down, and put some lights and put a couple of HEPA filter, big fan units in, pulled a 40mm PVC curtain all the way around. I made a really nice little environment inside sort of big dusty warehouse. And then operated the business from there and we had, just getting to know people in the region. Friends go, hey, can we take 2,000 square feet in there also? Can we take 5,000 feet? And I was like, let me go and chat to Bill. And so I thought about it and my mind is going tick, 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 tick. I think there could be an opportunity here. And so talked to Marshall from Cushman and Wakefield. And said, is there any demand for small amounts of space on a sort of monthly basis, like the co-working type model? He said, they get calls every week, for things that they just can't.
Particularly with the direct to consumer, right? People that are doing e-commerce fulfillment and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that market's just gone through the roof because COVID's really just accelerated the demise of retail.
Sure.
And it's opened up opportunities for these direct to consumer brands. So we had a chat to Bill about hey, maybe we should do this here and sort of put the model together, and he was interested, and then. He got an offer on the building, so the building sold everyone out.
Wow!
So that was
start over.
Yeah. So it was just, but it was so we kind of worked out the whole model being in that environment.
Sure.
And put the whole thing together, and the last sort of couple of months, I've kind of been looking for a location. Haven't found anything. And then on Wednesday, we got our first location. So since I came here last year, so we've got a location in Rogers now,
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah,
excellent.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually a retail space we're converting, so really good spot, plenty of parking, great access.
And talk about that industrial co-working model. Talk about that, because I think that's really an interesting spin.
Okay, yeah. So we kind of coined the term, or we did coin the term industrial co-working, because we wanted to describe what it was, what we're trying to create, and the whole idea was we want to enable small to mid-sized companies to get started or grow and take physical space on a flexible basis. But we want to have the amenities that office co-working has also. Because one of the struggles, even if we could find a small industrial space, they often come with no offices. It's often just a blank canvas.
Right.
If they do, you often have to do work to them. There's no inwards outwards goods. There's no support services on the sides. And so we thought, let's build an environment where we kind of combine the co-working. Like I explain it like WeWork and warehousing combined.
Yeah.
So you've got all the amenities that the office co-working has. You've got the people in the front, like community managers to greet people. You've got offices if you want some office space. You've got meeting rooms, phone booths. And then on the warehouse piece, you've got your own physical space. And then we have like inwards, outwards goods. So, we have a warehouse manager there. If you're a direct-to-consumer brand, you're getting a pallet dropped off. You don't have to be there. We can receive it for you. And drop it off at your location, when you get there. So really just want to make sure, we provide the front office and the sort of back end services. So if you're a startup, you want to get into business, you need physical space, you come and see us, go, yep, I need 300 square feet, I need 1,000 square feet, I need 5,000. Cool, sign up. Tomorrow you're in business. You don't have to negotiate contracts. You don't have to look all around the place for places. You don't have to fit them out. Everything's
Great
done.
idea. Is there anything like that that's similar that you found anywhere? Is anybody else doing something close to it?
We found something similar, but it's not done as well as we're doing it. It's very kind of basic and it's not very hospitable like the workspace environment. And we want to make ours like you can work out of it as a physical sort of tasks, but you could also make it an office space if you want, from like an industrial type office.
So you're thinking beyond here. You get this right here, and then you replicate it, in a bunch of different markets, because the demand's got to be a lot of different MSA, metropolitan service areas would have the demand, I would think.
Yeah. For us, it's really call this home.
Right.
So we kicked off the project, and then spend a couple of months getting everything tweaked and iron out the kinks. And then really just go nationwide as fast as we can. Get some serious venture capital in. Build a team and grow. So the idea is to make this a unicorn. So $1 billion plus company that was born in Northwest Arkansas.
Love it.
Oh, great. And there's no long-term leasing, right? It's all month to month basis.
Yeah, so it starts off. So there's different rates. We'll go up to a year, and then you can go monthly if you want. And so there's different tiers, like different rates per month based on the commitment. If you go sort of month to month, you're paying a slight premium. But then if you commit for about 6 to 12 months, you get a better price.
You think, can you layer on additional services? So you talked about some fulfillment, some shipping and receiving type of stuff. What are those other layers that might be kind of the long tail in the business?
Yeah, we're kind of looking at things that we suspect the companies will probably like 3PL. There may be an opportunity to do some micro 3PL offerings, for companies that do use the space and, need a space to do things, but because you can't do that kind of stuff in a 3PL.
Right.
If you put your stuff in a 3PL, they don't let you wander around and pick some boxes off the shelves and change labels.
Right.
We'll put things together. So we're looking at different services like that, and I think it'll come down to let's get people in there, get the location operating, and then just see what people are interested in. Because the market will tell us over time.
Sure.
If they need this and that, and we'll just cater to what we think makes sense.
It's a good spot to start here because of you've got all the retail concentration, a lot of brand concentration, a lot of emerging brands. I think this is ideal because a lot of them haven't been able to do this unless they do their own build out. They have to take way more space than what they need initially.
Yeah,
really good idea.
And being a startup, you just don't know how much space you need.
Yeah.
You don't know how much space you need today. You've got an idea how much you need today, but you don't know how much in 3 to 6 months. You don't know how much in a year, because startups either kind of have slow and steady growth, explosive growth, or just kind of explode into pieces.
Right. It's really only 3 options.
You've got 3 great options.
Exactly. No doubt.
For us, we really want to. There's kind of 2 parts to it. We want to support the early to mid-stage companies, but we also want to be a service provider to the bigger companies.
Sure.
For either overflow space, or to get them into the environment where these early stage companies are. So, coming through Rocket Space, we saw the benefits of having corporate partners involved,
right?
And actually creating community. So they had like Samsung, BP. They had all these big brands that were connected to the location, and they'd come in, do like pitch, nights or days and that kind of stuff. So they'd see what was going on with the startups. So they got access to the startups. The startups got access to the corporates. The place got some funding for, brokering those relationships. And we'd also have things like, have law firms, accounting firms come in, do talks. This is how you structure this. This is how you do that. This is what a safe is. This is how you use it for raising capital. And then we'd have other companies. Like we had hotels tonight, I think, come in one night. Like some of the C-suite come in, and just talk. And it's really cool because you get inspired. And I think that sense of community is important. So we don't want to just be a space, here's a box, go for it.
Right.
And some people will just want the box and to do their own thing, which is fine. But we also want to have that connection with, like economic development here. Like, we're tied in with the university now. So we've had a number of meetings with the university, and they're very bullish on what we're doing.
Great.
Northwest Arkansas Council, very supportive.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's good. We're getting a lot of support.
No, that's great.
And Startup Junkie, for sure. You guys have been great as well.
Yeah, that's because we bring bourbon.
Yes. Exactly. So number 1,
and maybe a connection.
And number 2, some connections.
One of the questions I was going to ask was about, you've spent so much time in these different ecosystems that are, somebody getting started with something. They might think that they have to get started in a coast or, in a Southern California, that sort of thing. So I was going to see if you'd speak to, your experience from that. Like you touched on that a little bit about the community built around that, and I guess your what brought you to Northwest Arkansas and what you see for Northwest Arkansas in regards to building some of that community here organically, which is a big piece of what Startup Junkie does. So I'm just curious, what your perception of that is so far.
Yeah, being in one of the reasons I went to San Francisco is I just wanted to get, immersed in that startup environment. So I'd go to every meetup I could, I'd do every pitch event I could, talk to everyone, and there's always something going on. Obviously San Francisco is like the gold standard for that kind of activity. And then Miami was it was 2017 in Miami, so it was a bit different. There's less activity, but I feel there's probably more activity now in Miami. And here, I've only really just kind of started to get my feet wet. And a big part of it's because of COVID. So, you guys there's no live events. But
it's a lot different now than it was in 2019 when we had live events multiple times a week.
Right, yeah. And I feel there's a lot of support for early stage companies here.
There is.
Even at like the super high level. And that's one of the reasons, the location that we have, which I can't share it today, but I'll share it very, very soon. The owners of that are very supportive of early stage companies and what's going on in the region. So, I think there's a lot to push it forward, and I think it's just going to take just people doing stuff, and attracting people to the area, and that's what we want to do. We want to help facilitate that where we can, and share. All the knowledge that we've picked up through being in the valley and, being in those different environments and also, hosting events at at a location as well.
100%. Well, you can count on that.
Yes.
Once you get this thing stood up.
Let's talk grand opening party.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
We're
You guys bring the beer.
Yeah,
pretty
exactly.
good at convening these types of things.
Exactly.
For sure. No, I mean, it's exciting. It's a good vision, and it's really interesting the way that it aligns with some of the initiatives that Walmart has, for example, where they'll do their Made in the USA solicitation. They'll have 500 companies in that have products made in the USA. Inevitably, some of those are really small, and they need the ability to do fulfillment locally. And there's not a lot of good ways to do that unless you overcommit to a larger space. So I mean, I think you're going to have a lot of upside with this. It's very promising from my point of view.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it's a good move. And it really, from our view, it feels like a solution to a problem.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like we've created a really cool solution and we're trying to find a problem for it.
Yep.
And it was a problem that we had, so it was really born out of frustration. And then, just other people seeing what we'd done and coming to us. And, we're not property people. We haven't done a ton of commercial property in the past or anything like that. So, we're coming from outside the industry. So, but I've leased a lot of properties in the past.
Sure.
So I've been a user of commercial properties. So we're really coming from outside to a certain extent.
Sure.
And I don't even feel like we're necessarily disrupting anything. We're kind of there's a white space there that
Didn't exist.
didn't exist.
Nobody was doing it.
Yeah, so it's not like we're out there to disrupt commercial property.
Well, it's not.
And that space is probably going to be changing as a result of
Exactly.
COVID. I mean, I feel like that's an evolving space right now, probably.
Well, as you think of the dynamic that's changing, where there's going to be a lot less interest in having a lot of top tier Class A space because people are working in a hybrid environment. But you still, if you're moving physical products, you still have to have space to do that. That can't happen virtually. And this just seems like something that's really timely.
Yeah, and the remote working thing, like you said, is great.
Yeah.
But you can't. There's certain things you can't do from home.
Yep.
And, down the track, we're looking at different verticals as well. Maybe offering kind of specialized services like wet lab space and this kind of thing. But that'll be down the track, and based on demand and what we see in the market, because I think there's a ton of opportunity for a lot of different industries. We're kind of tackling the one that is kind of the low hanging fruit for now.
Yeah.
But I think this industry is going to explode in a number of different ways.
And the end game for you is to build it as big as you can build it, and then maybe there's some kind of exit, but you're just going to build a great company. That's the way I hear you talk.
Yeah, yes. I've always been out for that unicorn.
Yeah.
We got the last business to 40 million, and so that's a good start. But this one I want to push it all away, and I feel like we can. Particularly with the support we're seeing so far.
That's great.
Because to do that takes a lot of, it's a team effort.
Sure.
And it takes a lot of support from like key players in any region, and obviously a lot of financial support. And I feel like that's here. So it's really for us to just demonstrate that we get this first one going, get it right, and then expand quickly. Yeah,
it's a great place for this type of stuff, because I mean this is one of, if not the center of the universe for retail, consumer packaged goods, and supply chain. And you're right at the cross section of all three of those.
Yeah.
It's a good place for sure.
And Jeff has used the term shiny object guy, as far as like people that see something they want to chase after that next thing, but not necessarily shiny object guy who just like experienced pain points and then leaned into those opportunities to launch something with the original concept of it being residential, and then experiencing the pain point once you got here, and then pivoting towards that direction. So there's a lot of I think people that listen to the podcast will have heard us talk about shiny objects or opportunities. And
well, and you also repurposed a bunch of the stuff that you had built for the residential side.
Yes.
To you. So I mean, it was like that wasn't throwaway. No, you were able to take some of that platform that you already had built, and it gave you a running start at this. Yeah.
So I mean, we're probably, let's say, 90% there with the platform. So if we started today, it'll be at least a 6-month build to get like an MVP ready. But we're probably 6 weeks away from flicking the switch. We just have to make a couple of modifications, add a booking system for meeting rooms and that kind of thing. But we've got billing systems built in. We've got a ton of stuff.
No, that's great.
That's awesome.
Because I ran the product team with the last startup, so I'm used to being the interface between the business requirements and the engineers, and that's in my view, but probably because I'm doing it, a super important role. So, to make sure that the engineering team gives us things that work for the business.
Well, you've had this sort of entrepreneurial career that's been a winding road, an opportunistic winding road. Started in a place, I would imagine when you were working on an aircraft engineering, you had no idea that you'd be doing what you're doing today. But if your current self could go back in time and give your younger self some advice, what would it be?
I'd probably give myself a punch in the face for a start.
Yeah. Where have I heard that before? Does that sound familiar, Davis? I didn't prompt him to say that.
Was that in CB?
Yeah, no. I mean, actually, I responded to a question in a very similar way. If I could go back, I'd punch myself in the head. That's funny.
It's one of those funny. And funnily enough, I thought about this the other day. Because I don't know, I think about random things occasionally. Yeah. And I thought about if I could go back and tell myself that it's going to take 20 years before you finally get onto something that you really like and you think is awesome, would you keep going? I was like, that's a tricky question to answer. Like, if I could go back and say, dude, you're going to have this failure, this failure, this failure, this failure, and then in 20 years, you're going to hit your straps. Be like, oh man, I'm just going to stay as an aircraft engineer.
I'm going to find my cubicle.
Just give me a cubicle.
So maybe sometimes it's good to not be able to go back and do that, right?
It's funny because part of one thing I did when I was in Australia, I lived in Australia for a bit. I started a band over there. And I do a bit of music as kind of a hobby,
right?
Like write songs and stuff. And for me, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a form of, I don't know if it's an expression, but I kind of get stuff off my chest. Yeah. And then it's kind of like in code, so no one knows what it really means, And I kind of like that. So for me, it's like, everyone's like, wow, everyone can make up their own meaning. But yeah, one of the lyrics in one of my songs is like, every turn you take leads you to where you are right now. And if I hadn't taken all those turns over the years, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Sure, right.
I wouldn't have locked that property in on Wednesday. So I'm kind of one of those people that I kind of believe that you are where you are because of the choices you made. And, would you do it differently? I don't know, because you'd have a completely different outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd probably just say to myself, just relax and enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey. Love it.
It's, I don't know if I'd try and give myself advice, and I don't think myself would listen.
That's a good point.
Your younger self would have punched your own self in the head. Right?
I would have a punch up like that.
Probably would have won because he's stronger.
It's you look back at the route you took or the map, it might be crazy, but like you said, it's got you where you were, and you're not through it yet until you're there. So that's a good point.
And it's kind of funny because like what I'm doing now is actually like a combination of a lot of different things that I've done. Like when I was a kid, I used to hang around workshops and fix cars, and then I learned how to paint cars. So I'd make cars look nice and sell them for a profit. And then I got into the aircraft business, and then I really learned how to paint while I was there. And you go through the side shops and you learn different things. So I used to work on the ramp and refuel the big jets, and then work in the mechanical shops, would strip down the engines to nothing, and then work in composites. Would play with carbon fiber and stuff. So I really enjoyed learning all those different skills. And then doing business with the billboard thing. I just learned about just having no fear and getting on the phone and just keep calling people until they
figuring out how to sell, right?
Until they tell you to bugger off. And I guess it's just persistence. And Mum taught us that as kids, just get back up on the horse, get back up, just keep going. So it's one of those things I learned as a kid, and it's just kind of followed me through. And that combined with all the different skills, have just enabled me to look at a situation from a number of different angles.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, I guess, multi-dimensional. And look at a problem. There's always different ways to solve a problem depending on which angle you look at it from. And I've learned never to my opinion is just my opinion. Like it could be, we're looking at that bottle and I'll describe it in detail. You've got a completely different view because you're looking at the other side of it. It's a different label. And so I like to kind of, collaborate and just share. And it's all about team with any sort of business.
Yeah.
I've tried to do it all by myself and be a dictator.
It's lonely, right?
Yeah.
And probably not the right way to do it.
Everyone just gets sick of you. It's like, no. So I've learned to take more of a collaborative approach and work with people.
Well, listen, Brendan, that's super valuable advice. A lot of our audience are people that are somewhere on the entrepreneurial journey or considering it. What's the best way for them, the audience, to find out more about LowLoft, or for you, find out more about you, for that matter?
Yeah, ask my mum.
She gives the dirt, huh?
Yeah.
What was he like as a kid?
She loves telling me my family secrets.
We'll have her on the podcast next.
Yeah, she'd love it. Yeah, she'd be singing songs. And LowLoft, you can go to lowloft.com. That's LOLOF for Foxtrot, T for Tango.com.
We'll drop that in the show notes too.
Cool. And for me, probably Google me. You find there's a bit of stuff out there. But about the personal stuff, it's probably not a lot online about there's not a lot of dirt out there. We haven't got that famous yet.
The main thing is the company, right? If there's people out there that are interested in what LowLoft's doing, the website is the best place right now.
Yeah, the website, or ping me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn.
And when you think you'll be up and running and launching? When's that happening?
So we'll probably be live in about 8 weeks, I would say.
Wow. Awesome. So that's near term.
Yeah.
So
it's very
in the
near
fall, you'll be rolling.
Yeah, we'll be rolling. So we agreed on the property on Wednesday. Thursday morning, we met with a general contractor on site.
Wow.
So that's already started. So we're moving very quickly on that because this is we've had the powder dry for a while, so we know.
Time to go.
It's time to go.
Yeah.
We've got our look, feel, our designs and everything. It's just a matter of making it work in that space and then fitting it out. And the beauty of this is we can actually stage it as well. Mm-hmm. So we don't have to do the whole fit out, the whole 70,000 square feet in one go. So we're going to just do the first 25% and we'll be ready to open. But we'll be marketing from, I'd say, 2 or 3 weeks.
Awesome.
Once we get the renders ready.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Sharing it. So I'll share it with you guys and say, hey, we're ready to start.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. And it's exciting. We're glad you're here. Glad you landed in Northwest Arkansas.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Don't get too itchy to leave, though. Stay around for a little bit. We want to see this thing go.
Yeah, we're enjoying it. I'm glad you're glad. Thank you. And also, thank you to Startup Junkie for the support as well.
That's what we're
Jeff
here for.
the introduction.
Absolutely.
Super helpful. Yeah.
Glad to help. Glad to help.
Cool.
Awesome,
right.
Brendan. Thanks for coming on.